According to the idea of empires, in particular, if we have to consider the connection between the idea of empires between ancients and moderns, we have to consider, or we can create a specific, or we can think a specific type of example between two type of empires. One, an ancient empires, in this sense, the Alexander the Great Empire, and then also a specific type of modern empires as the Spanish Empire in relation with the idea of cultures. This is really interesting because, these type of ideas are similar but not the same. But at the same time, it is interesting because we can consider this type of connection between this type of two empires. In fact, during the period of Alexander the Great, when Alexander the Great conquered the Greek city-states, or better, developed specific type of deals between the city-states, which specific type of hegemony that the Macedonians develop into the idea of Greece, then Alexander the Great and the Greek Macedons developed a specific type of conquest of the East, and therefore the western part of the Persian Roman Empire. Therefore, Alexander the Great conquered the east part of, for example, that lands that were at the east of Greece, and at the same time he developed the main plane of the main project of his father, Philip, to conquer for example, in this sense, western part of the Persian Empire. In this sense, we know that the main ideology of that period, it was that specifically the city-states, the Greek city-states, were really considered really important, the idea of independence into the idea of city-states in relation with the strangers, the foreigners in particular. Therefore, all that people that were outside of the idea of Greece. This is really important because, therefore, the Greeks, before Alexander the Great, didn't develop specifically a specific type of empire. Or better, they developed empires but without a specific type of connection with other type of cultures. We know that the Persian Empire, for example, it was multicultural and tried to conquer the Greek city-states, but at the same time we know also that in this sense the Greek city-state before the Alexander the Great Empire, they were into the idea of culture. On the other hand, with Alexander the Great, we know that this type of structure moved from the east, and Alexander the Great conquered the western Persian Empire, that it was already multicultural. Therefore, Alexander the Great developed his conquest from Pella in Macedon to India, to the river Indo, and then return to Babylon in the ex lands of the Persian Empire, in the past lands of the Persian Empire, and he died in 323 BC. What is really interesting in this sense of this type of procedure movements of Alexander the Great is that directly he wanted to conquer the Persian Empire, therefore its lands. For example, he arrived also in Egypt before the Battle of Gaugamela of 331 BC. But at the same time, we know that this type of movements indirectly develop a specific type of connection between Greeks, Macedonians people, and also Persian people. In fact, for example, in this sense, the same Alexander had to develop specifically different type of connections, cultural connection with these people. For example, the same Alexander the Great married a woman of the Persian Empire, Rossane, that it was a princess of Bactria, a region of the Persian Empire. And we know that already the Persian Empire, it was multicultural before the idea of Greeks. Greeks were in relation with their independence, and they didn't support the idea of multicultural position. The Persian Empire already it was multicultural also during the 5 and the 5 century BC. Before Alexander the Great. But then when Alexander the Great directly arrived to conquer this type of empire, the western part of the Persian Empire, we know that there was a specific type of connection between the Greek cultures in relation with the idea that the man of Alexander the Great that conquer during time, during this type of years, during the campaigns of Alexander, the western part of the Persian Empire, they tried to connect, or better, they are indirectly connected with these people, these barbarians that, according to the Greeks, were barbarians. Therefore, directly Alexander supported the idea of conquest, according to the idea of Homer, Achilles. Probably Alexander wanted to conquer because he wanted to develop a specific type of idea of Homer in relation with the myth of Achilles. In fact, Alexander probably believed to be a demigod, the son of Zeus. But at the same time, we know that this type of structure indirectly develop a specific type of connection between the Persian cultures and the Greek cultures and the Macedonian cultures that became the hegemony of the Greek, in particular in the middle of the 4th century BC. This is really interesting because, therefore, the soldiers of Alexander, the people who followed Alexander, also the intellectuals who followed Alexander, arrived to develop specific type of relationships with the barbarians, and the barbarians also with these people, with these Greek and Macedonian people. And therefore also arrived a different type of sons, because the men of Alexander married the women of the Persians, and in this sense arrived to be some sons and daughters that they were, according to the main ideology of that time, a sort of in the middle between the idea of Greeks and the idea of Persians. Therefore, according to the Greeks, this type of people that they were born from a person who was Greek and a person who was Persian, it was in the middle. And in this sense, according to this type of ideology, it is difficult to specifically to define this person. According to the Greeks, in fact, this type of structure that Alexander developed, it was strange, really strange. This is interesting because this type of empire tried to develop indirectly a specific type of question, the issue of inclusivism, that then the Roman Empire in this sense developed. In fact, the Roman Empire didn't consider the color of the skin, for example. It wasn't an idea of racism during the ancient world. In fact, also the Greeks, in this sense, they didn't consider the other populations in relation with the race, but in particular in relation with their culture. According to Greeks, all of them, they were superior in front of the other cultures. But during the modern age, it was supported, in particular during the discovery of the America in 1492, in particular during the first type of colonization of the Spanish Empire. It was this type of structure that developed a specific type of connection between the others that we know already happened during the Empire of Alexander the Great, for example. And in this sense, now happened during the conquer of the new world differently, but in this sense similar, because people arrived to know other people, people of the Western society, for example, the Spanish, arrived to know other people. For example, the Indios, the people who were born in the Mexico and in South America, or also in Florida, in the North America. These people, the Spanish, for example, arrived to know, or also in Texas, in North America, arrived to know the people of the New World. And in this sense, according to the ideology of Spanish, in this sense, arrived to be, it was theorized a specific type. Yeah, in this sense, truly, it was theorized a specific type of ideology of the races. In this sense, in fact, according to the Spanish Empire, or better, according to the idea of Spanish in the New World, there was a specific type of hierarchy based on the color of the skin that, according to the ancients, it wasn't. And now it was. Therefore, according to your skin, during the period of the colonialism, you were better or worse. You could have much more rights or less rights. And in this sense, for example, people who were much more in relation with the color of the skin, black, had less rights than the others. In this sense, the hierarchy, it was developed in this sense. The Spanish, the Native Americans, and the black people. According to that ideology of, in this sense, Spanish and race. But according to also the idea of economically structure, and this is also interesting, the black people, in a case that the Spanish Empire sent to the New World, in particular from Spanish, they were naturalized in Spanish and they were, in the sense, Catholics. Therefore, these people, according to the main hierarchy, were in the last part, but according to the main idea of connection with the Spaniards people, they were much more important than the natives, because they already had a specific type of culture in relation with Spanish, and this is really interesting. In any case, we know that in the end, this type of theory of the races, it was developed during the movements of the Spaniards people in the New World, and then we know also that in this sense, in any case, if we have to consider the English colonialism and the Spanish colonialism, we know that also the English people develop a specific type, in this sense, hierarchy as the Spaniards, but Spaniards were developed also the natural law much more, in particular from the 5th century AD, much more than the England. In fact, the Spaniards arrived before England, but at the same time they developed a specific type of society that it was inclusive, differently by England, that in any case, and this it was we can see this in particular also with the birth of the United States in the 18th century. The England didn't develop specifically the idea of rights also for the black people, but also for the natives, for the Native Americans. In fact, for example, the king of Spanish, Carlo V, developed a specific type of law that supported in specific type of parameters the natural law of the Native Americans, but also the black people, Native Americans, that according to Carlo V didn't according to this type of law, these people couldn't be considered slaves and couldn't happen slaves as Native Americans. For the black people, instead, a specific type of law that supported them objectively, differently by the idea of their lords. And we know therefore that this type of structures and laws, the English didn't develop this type of laws differently by the Spanish. In this sense, Spaniards people developed a specific type of more inclusive society much more than English people. Bye.